Hey, all you happy lost souls. Thank you if you just found the channel. You find it interesting and you like stone artifacts and interesting parts of history that are forgotten in North America. And again, I'm on the East Coast. I live about a couple miles outside of Philadelphia, so southeast Pennsylvania. And we have some extremely interesting things to discuss. I'm going to circle back. One of my first videos was called The Lost Indian Silver Mines, quote unquote. And this story was actually carried back by Dutch and French fur trappers that were in and around the Pennypack and Wissahickon watersheds back in the late 1500s, mid 1500s. And they carried this legend of these rich and vast, extremely well hidden silver mines and gold mines near a place called Acadia. Acadia is still a place, but it is now known as Arcadia. There's even a university there, and it's right down near Cheltenham Avenue. But the reason the silver mine legend is important is because it ties them to Susquehannock. And the Susquehanna people were extremely gifted metal workers. And I'm not saying that to say that Native Americans didn't work with metal. Many groups did, but their knowledge of being able to smelt the metal, creating different alloys, and the mining of it, they were obviously doing it for a really long time. And I think I made a very important discovery. A, where the mines are actually at, and quarries, because we're going to be more accurate. A lot of them are just open pit quarries. And the proof and evidence that we have. And as I stated before, most of the stuff you see here, well, all the stuff you see here just comes from Three Creeks, but most of it is from the sites within the Pennypack. So the only stuff you're seeing that's not from the Pennypack is these small tools here from the Neshaminy, and these tools here are from the Wissahickon. Everything else is all Pennypack finds. So I had to say to myself, this mining activity that we find in these quarries, these pits, has gone back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Before the Susquehannocks were even in the area, before all that. There was somebody in this area quarrying, taking certain stones out of the area, especially stuff like this. And what you see here is a big piece of cinnabar, mercury ore. It's everywhere in the Pennypack, and they were mining it, and they were bringing it back along the trade routes to Cahokia down to the Mayan culture. To this day, Mayan sites are radioactive because the amount of cinnabar or mercury ore that they were using, crushing it up to make different pigments. They would cover the bodies in ochre, this red pigment. They would paint themselves in it. They also needed it in the processing of their very important color called Mayan blue, a pigment. So what I think you have here is, at one point, a vast trading network. And that's the misconception. When the Europeans got here, this wasn't this pristine, untapped land. There were millions and millions of very civilized people exploiting the resources of North America for thousands of years before there was contact by Europeans. So we have to erase some of those ignorances from our mind. The Susquehannock made Indian silver, which is a super high grade pewter really, but it contained more silver than anything else, base metals. Right here you have an example of a fossilized bone that's stained in ochre. That could be off of a human. I'm not really good bones. I'm not a paleontologist, but what I'm getting at is this connection of what they're quarrying. And then you see probably around the Bronze Age, something became extremely valuable, and the area has a ton of it. And that was something called tin, or tin ore. The Pennypack is literally just chock full of this tin, and it's everywhere. And then if you mix a little bit of copper, which is also found in the area in decent amounts, you get all different types of copper sulfate and copper ores. You mix those two together and you have bronze. There was a point in human history that tin was worth triple that to what gold was. And here is a piece of straight up, almost pure native silver ore. It's not much to look at. And you could really see that it was literally chiseled or drilled out of its spot. And this is near where I've identified one of the caved-in mine entrances that'll actually let you underground. But a lot of the stuff is just quarried right out of the ground. Now what's interesting is at these quarry sites, we get some kind of worship going on. And first of all, here's an example of the tools you find, these massive hammers. These are really hard quartzite materials. Some of these aren't even, they're different types of dolomites and different types of alloys and metals running through these hammers. This one's crazy. You can literally see the strap, the staining from how this is held on. See the staining of how this is held on. And you see how it was cut out there and there in the corner. And this is a composite tool, a huge hammer for smashing and crushing. And then you get a lot of these pickaxe looking type tools that were hammers, more simpler hammer. This hammer is crazy because it almost looks like a modern hammer. This stuff was for crushing up harder rocks to get ore out of them. We see the same materials on these. That's a magnetite hammerhead. It's magnetic. You see these knife blades. These are all found in pairs or triples. Look at this beautiful celt with this swirling pattern through it. Serpentine pattern found with this hammer sharpening stone that's ringed. Just gorgeous. These pieces, different creek, the Wissahickon, these are pennypack, but they were placed in effigy as an offering for some spiritual practice that has eluded me. Could it be that they're pulling a bunch of rock and a bunch of materials from these sites, so it's a god almost, and they're honoring it back by donating some back? Or are they significant crossing points, or are they deep points of the water? Also, at all of these sites, they're marked by what I call ghost trees, these bright white trees. And even modern routes, you'll see this. If you drive over a bridge that's on a creek, just look around. Right up against that bridge, you'll see these big old white trees there and marking the crossing points. But you get a lot of this mining activity, and you get a lot of these big pieces of ore. This has platinum in it, all kinds of stuff in it. It's got to get tested. And again, these rich mercury. And you'll see this bright red in that mercury coming out. And this stuff was literally stacked at the one mining site, quarrying site. It's endless. The Beach of Hammers is just a mountain of stone hammers. I was there for 10 minutes and I found this stuff just on the surface, all these hammers. Okay? And this vast amount of stuff they're knocking out. You find hooks and drills and all different kinds of stuff in these sites. But again, this mining activity started as mining for stone, for gems, for Solutrean quarrying for the good stone to make their tools. And then a newer race came in, a newer group of people. After that, people died out. They were mining the area for, it appears to be, some Bronze Age culture or something. Got over here. Or the Native Americans, the Susquehannocks, were exploiting that as well. But they really only talk about silver and gold. They weren't pulling out tin. At that point, tin was fairly common. But back during, 3,000-4,000 BCE, when tin was a huge commodity, that would have been a resource they would absolutely want to exploit. So, and this is some of the a lot older stuff here, like the more Neanderthal looking stuff. Again, all this is found in PA along the Pennypack mainly. This beautiful, like some kind of marking or some kind of ogum that I'm not sure about on it. It looks like a heart. It's got some silver and gold running through it. Gold right there. And it's almost like a pointer stone. And this is kind of buried under a tree, and it got washed out in a storm. And I found it, and it looked like a skull at first. And then when I cleaned it up, it was this crazy crystal geode, obviously marked up. It was something ancient. And you see other examples, like I don't take all of what I find, but you find these beautiful hunks of like pure white alabaster at some of these sites. But I've narrowed this down, and mostly all the stuff from the Pennypack comes from these identifiable quarry sites. And the mines are caved in, but I've located entrances to those as well. And I found a lot of evidence supporting the entrances of these mines and the materials we find around it, even some of the colonial stuff found in proximity to it. I mentioned before there's a type of mushroom called a golden chanterelle, and it pops out. I have some dried out somewhere up here. So these chanterelles, these are little baby ones now, but these chanterelles, they grow all along the paths, and they were a delicacy. Even the colonials used to pickle them, but they come from Germany and France, and you can literally see the spores of where these people walked and tracked these hundreds of years ago that created these chanterelles growing off of these complexes of roots and mosses. I call it the golden pathway. You tie all this stuff together, and then you see how the land was manipulated, and you look at Google photos and stuff. You found a couple of the mine entrances. There's also mines on the grounds of the Pennypack preservation that were more modern, like 19th century mercury and lead mines. But if you look at a periodic table, where there's mercury and lead, there's going to be silver and gold. And the legends were extremely persistent about these lost silver mines, but a lot of people thought they were in the Allegheny Forest somewhere. But I'm here to tell you that the silver, which is running through this tomahawk and this crazy honing tool that were found in conjunction together, these crazy quartzite tools, this magnetic hammerhead made of magnetite, I think it was some kind of navigational tool, kind of like a primitive compass. These Salutrian stuff, which is older, and then these crazy hammers for when there was ancient miners mining here. And I'm not saying these miners were all related to one another. One group of people was mining one material, another person came in where there's another material. And that's kind of the thing. A lot of the Native American tribes had no need to learning how to work with metal, because especially the copper around the Great Lakes is so pure you can just cold hammer it into shapes. But they were definitely after this stuff, this really rich red material known as cinnabar and paleogorsite clays. You needed these elements to make Maya blue. I'm not saying the Mayans were here, but some of their stuff is sure here, because that's Maya blue pottery. So some of their stuff got here, and I think it was through these vast trading networks where that spun out from the mound city, Cahokia. And I think you're seeing, I don't know if all of these quarries were peaceful. I think some of these people were enslaved to work. And this cinnabar, this red pigment, this material to make that was more valuable than gold. Gold was everywhere in the Mayan realm. They didn't really care too much about it. It was common, but they needed the paleogorskites and they needed the cinnabars to make their blues and reds. And we can see right here, this is a cinnabar glaze on this celt. Turns it into this red color. Now, like I said, the problem with cinnabar is it's radioactive. It's heavy metal, and that's why a lot of Mayan sites are 19 to 30% higher than they should be in that toxic element. Anyways, if you like this kind of stuff, or if you find stuff that's very interesting in Pennsylvania, if you find patterns of tools, things that have patina on them, this outer surface, this black stuff on here, where you could kind of see the rock under it. But look at this perfect tool here, this gouge, this pressure tool for pressure flaking, also for woodworking. But you could see the pitch, the black grit, and from using this tool, creating patina. We'll see it on other ones like this Celt head right here. Look at the patina, some of it's chipped off. That is literally old pitch that is on there, that is hardened up, that is mineralized. But, these longer tools are for pressure flaking to get those real sharp edges, and also for woodworking. These really smooth ones for sharpening, and they'll have a groove. It's like a file. But yeah, just amazing stuff, and you can finally see like all this stuff tying together to different time periods. But all this stuff is unknown because we step over it every day. We take it for granted. We have a lot of a-holes out there that tell us our stuff's not artifacts, that they're just rocks, and that we don't know what we're talking about, that are what I call paradigm police, protecting the paradigm that doesn't make any sense. I'm telling you folks, when you find stuff that is 60 to 100,000 years old in estimations, layers where, when the previous way of thinking says, hey, people were only here about 15,000 years ago, and that's it. 13,000 BCE, that's when Clovis first appeared. There's stuff before Clovis. This is a non-Clovis point. It is a point that looked Clovis. It's percussioned, but it is not fluted at all. It is something called byline ridged. So there's a ridge right here that will catch the shaft. So this is what we call more of a Solutrean design. And what I think happened is the Solutreans were the people that had these vast quarries that made these really diamond-like shapes, these really thin agate preforms before they were sharpened and buffed out. These diamond shapes, these hooks, these intricate shapes they made, very knife-looking, like knives and cutting tools that almost look like what we use today. I think what happened is they were masters of stone quarrying and working stone. I think what happened is the groups that moved into the area after the Solutreans disappeared and had their time about 20,000 years ago, disaster happened, population restarted back up around 13,000 years. These newer people stumbled across a lot of these mines where the preforms are already made, and they just purposed them with fluting and put their own technology in, because 3/4 of the work was done already for them. We're great at recycling, why not? The Solutreans notorious for these little saws, these little files, these little pokers. These are Solutrean because they've been found on other Solutrean sites. These big saws, these big alabaster saws. This is like a chert of some sort. And you can see the serrating. And you see nature's not going to make this perfect angle like this. You get the shine from the patina, but you have this, obviously, this saw. And this could be composite or non-composite, handled or just by hand, but you're looking at more of a woodworking type tools. And the Solutrean tools are very vast. They were very specialized. You got another saw on this end that's serrated. And then if you flip it around, you got like a poker or a gouge or a pressure tool. So it's like a multi-purpose tool. Again, very Solutrean in design. Older than Clovis. Stuff older than Solutrean. Stuff goes back 50 to 100 and some thousand years ago. We'll call it the North American Neanderthal or the Denisovan. You get this crazy little hand axe or this cutter. I mean, look at it. So you got the percussion there. Got the percussion. And then you've got the pressure flaking along the edge to make it razor sharp all the way around. Look at that pressure flaking. You see it here. Another piece. And this is obsidian. It's not really found around here in the penny. Like the only creek I've ever found it in is the Pennyback. But it's in very deep old layers. You see the cutting edge right there, and you see the place where they've cut out for the finger. So now you've just got a razor blade. And it's still very, very sharp. You got these weird geometric pressure flaking tools, blocks and squares and hammer stones and all kinds of the toolbox to make your kit, your stone tools. And these people that worked with the stone, they were such masters. It takes just as much talent to do that as to work with metal. But somewhere along the lines, the group moved in that was going after tin and copper, because we see a lot of it just processed but not fully processed in ore form. So in these areas, This site also where the stuff was found had some different bones that looked like they were butchered and that are now fossilized in the rock, which take at least 12 to 20,000 years in most cases to happen, to fully turn to stone. So all kinds of stuff like that. And you know, like even something like this. This you could clearly see. It's most likely a piece of wood that was cut, and it was a handle for another tool, but over time it petrified, and now it is no longer wood, but it is stone. But you can still see the grain. You can literally see the mineralization where garnet has formed. These could just be strange schists. There's a lot of weird schists in the area, like the Wissahickon schists are strange geological metamorphical stone. But anyways, I just want to walk you through some of it, and you know, if you're new to the channel, thank you for finding it. Share it, subscribe, like the video, turn notifications on. You can reach out to me. I'm not really great at getting back to people. Here and there I will. Very, very busy, and this is a very, very fun and enriching thing to do, but it doesn't make me any money. It actually probably loses me money. So, and you get a lot of grief and ridicule for this stuff, and that's the most important thing. If you're finding this stuff, don't listen to the first armchair person you take something to look at it. They're probably always going to poo-poo it because they really don't know what they're looking at, or it doesn't have context. There's patterns to all of this, even where you find the stuff. So something was going on all across times that weren't explained to us. Anyways, love y'all, all you happy lost souls. Catch you next time. Have a good one.